Mental and emotional health in teens is one of the main health and safety concerns in that age category. Let's break the stigma. Mental health awareness presented by Mrs. Kate M. Schultz.
You know that feeling where your thoughts scare you or make life tough? Sometimes it feels like no one else in the world has those thoughts or feelings. No one seems to know how difficult it is to deal with your feelings. And it's not easy to share your deepest secrets. You might think something is wrong with you. Or you might worry what other people think. And all of that makes your thoughts and feelings worse. Our culture has created this environment of shame. Until the 1960s, society sent people away if they had challenges managing their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Over time, we learned that we didn't have to be afraid. We learned how to help people get better. We became hopeful. But there are remnants of those images in our culture today, which is why some people still feel uncomfortable talking about it. The stigma has taken new forms too. With more access to more people all the time, it can seem like the world is telling us it's not okay to be anything but perfect. The truth is, everyone has thoughts or feelings that can be hard to deal with. So why do we make it so difficult on ourselves by judging others who could be going through the same challenges we are? What if, instead of seeing labels, we saw people who are struggling and could be there for them so they didn't feel so alone? What if we looked past our fear of mental health and started to talk about it in a constructive way? What if, as a society, we used empowering words and healthy images to help people feel supported? Maybe then, more of us could feel comfortable telling others when we're having a hard time. Maybe more people would get the help they need. And maybe one day we won't have to talk separately about mental health and physical health, but just health. The truth is, each of us has the power to change our culture. Will you join us? Share this video with a kid, your neighbor, a friend, and help us break the stigma of mental health. You know that feeling where
Thanks for watching that quick introduction. Let's take a look at some facts. 89% of people believe that mental health is just as important as physical health. Despite this, many people don't know how to have a conversation about it. 1 out of every 5 Americans is affected by mental illness. Stigma is a toxic to mental health because it creates an environment of shame, fear, and silence that prevents many people from seeking help and treatment. Today, we will define depression, self-harm, and suicide. Recognize symptoms and warning signs, and learn how to get help for you or others. Let's take a look at this TED video to get a better understanding of how mental health struggles could impact a young individual.
For a long time in my life, I felt like I've been living 2 different lives. There's the life that everyone sees, and then there's a life that only I see. And in the life that everyone sees, who I am is a friend, a son, a brother, a stand-up comedian, and a teenager. That's the life everyone sees. If you were asked my friends and family to describe me, that's what they would tell you. And that's a huge part of me. That is who I am. And if you're asked me to describe myself, I'd probably say some of those same things. And I wouldn't be lying, but I wouldn't totally be telling you the truth either. Because the truth is, that's just the life everyone else sees. In the life that only I see, who I am, who I really am, is someone who struggles intensely with depression. I have for the last 6 years of my life, and I continue to every day. Now, for someone who has never experienced depression or doesn't really know what that means, that might surprise them to hear, because there's a pretty popular misconception that depression is just being sad when something in your life goes wrong. When you break up with your girlfriend, when you lose a loved one, when you don't get the job you wanted. But that's sadness, that's a natural thing, that's a natural human emotion. Real depression isn't being sad when something in your life goes wrong. Real depression is being sad when everything in your life is going right. That's real depression, and that's what I suffer from. And to be totally honest, that's hard for me to stand up here and say. It's hard for me to talk about. And it seems to be hard for everyone to talk about it, so much so that no one's talking about it. And no one's talking about depression, but we need to be, because right now it's a massive problem. It's a massive problem. But we don't see it on social media, right? We don't see it on Facebook. We don't see it on Twitter. We don't see it on the news, because it's not happy, it's not fun, it's not light. And so because we don't see it, we don't see the severity of it. But the severity of it, the seriousness of it is this. Every 30 seconds, someone in the world takes their own life because of depression. And it might be 2 blocks away, it might be 2 countries away, it might be 2 continents away, but it's happening, and it's happening every single day. And we have a tendency as a society to look at that and go, so what? So what? We look at that and we go, that's your problem, that's their problem. We say we're sad and we say we're sorry, but we also say, so what? Well, 2 years ago was my problem. Because I sat on the edge of my bed, where I'd sat a million times before, and I was suicidal. I was suicidal. And if you were to look at my life on the surface, you wouldn't see a kid who was suicidal. You'd see a kid who was the captain of his basketball team, the drama and theater student of the year, the English student of the year, someone who was consistently on the honor roll and consistently at every party. So you would say I wasn't depressed, you would say I wasn't suicidal, but you'd be wrong. You'd be wrong. So I sat there that night beside a bottle of pills with a pen and paper in my hand, and I thought about taking my own life, and I came this close to doing it. I came this close to doing it. And I didn't. So that makes me one of the lucky ones, one of the people who gets to step out on the ledge and look down but not jump. One of the lucky ones who survives. Well, I survived, and that just leaves me with my story, and my story is this. In 4 simple words, I suffer from depression. I suffer from depression. And for a long time, I think I was living 2 totally different lives, where one person was always afraid of the other. I was afraid that people would see me for who I really was, that I wasn't the perfect popular kid in high school everyone thought I was, that beneath my smile there was struggle, and beneath my light there was dark, and beneath my big personality just hid even bigger pain. See, some people might fear girls not liking them back, some people might fear sharks, some people might fear death, but for me, for a large part of my life, I feared myself. I feared my truth, I feared my honesty, I feared my vulnerability, and that fear made me feel like I was forced into a corner. Where I was forced into a corner and there was only one way out. And so I thought about that way every single day. I thought about it every single day, and if I'm being totally honest standing here, I've thought about it again since, because that's the sickness. That's the struggle, that's depression, and depression isn't chicken pox. You don't beat it once and it's gone forever. It's something you live with. It's something you live in. It's the roommate you can't kick out. It's the voice you can't ignore. It's the feelings you can't seem to escape. And the scariest part is that after a while, you become numb to it. It becomes normal for you. And what you really fear the most isn't the suffering inside of you. It's the stigma inside of others. It's the shame. It's the embarrassment. It's the disapproving look on a friend's face. It's the whispers in the hallway that you're weak. It's the comments that you're crazy. That's what keeps you from getting help. That's what makes you hold it in and hide it. It's the stigma. So you hold it in and you hide it, and you hold it in and you hide it. And even though it's keeping you in bed every day and it's making your life feel empty no matter how much you try and fill it, you hide it, because the stigma in our society around depression is very real. It's very real. And if you think that it isn't, ask yourself this. Would you rather make your next Facebook status say you're having a tough time getting out of bed because you hurt your back? Or you're having a tough time getting out of bed every morning because you're depressed? That's the stigma. Because unfortunately, we live in a world where if you break your arm, everyone runs over to sign your cast. But if you tell people you're depressed, everyone runs the other way. That's the stigma. We are so accepting of any body part breaking down other than our brains. And that's ignorance. That's pure ignorance. And that ignorance has created a world that doesn't understand depression, that doesn't understand mental health. And that's ironic to me because depression is one of the best documented problems we have in the world, yet it's one of the least discussed. We just push it aside and put it in a corner and pretend it's not there and hope it'll fix itself. Well, it won't. It hasn't, and it's not going to, because that's wishful thinking. And wishful thinking isn't a game plan, it's procrastination, and we can't procrastinate on something this important. The first step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. Well, we haven't done that. So we can't really expect to find an answer when we're still afraid of the question. And I don't know what the solution is. I wish I did, but I don't. But I think it has to start here. It has to start with me. It has to start with you. It has to start with the people who are suffering, the ones who are hidden in the shadows. We need to speak up and shatter the silence. We need to be the ones who are brave for what we believe in, because if there's one thing that I've come to realize, if there's one thing that I see as the biggest problem, it's not in building a world where we eliminate the ignorance of others. It's in building a world where we teach the acceptance of ourselves. We're okay with who we are, because when we get honest, we see that we all struggle and we all suffer, whether it's with this, whether it's with something else. We all know what it is to hurt. We all know what it is to have pain in our heart, and we all know how important it is to heal. But right now, depression is society's deep cut that we're content to put a Band-Aid over and pretend it's not there. Well, it is there. It is there, and you know what? It's okay. Depression is okay. If you're going through it, know that you're okay, and know that you're sick. You're not weak, and it's an issue, not an identity, because when you get past the fear and the ridicule and the judgment and the stigma of others, you can see depression for what it really is. And that's just a part of life. Just a part of life. And as much as I hate some of the places, some of the parts of my life depression has dragged me down to, in a lot of ways I'm grateful for it. Because yeah, it's put me in the valleys, but only to show me there's peaks. And yeah, it's dragged me through the dark, but only to remind me there is light. My pain, more than anything in 19 years on this planet, has given me perspective. And my hurt's forced me to have hope and to have faith. Faith in myself, faith in others, faith that it can get better, that we can change this, that we can speak up and speak out and fight back against ignorance, fight back against intolerance. And more than anything, learn to love ourselves. Learn to accept ourselves for who we are, the people we are, not the people the world wants us to be. Because the world I believe in is one where embracing your light doesn't mean ignoring your dark. The world I believe in is one where we're measured by our ability to overcome adversities, not avoid them. The world I believe in is one where I can look someone in the eye and say, I'm going through hell. And they can look back at me and go, me too, and that's okay. And it's okay, because depression is okay. We're people. We're people, and we struggle, and we suffer, and we bleed, and we cry. And if you think that true strength means never showing any weakness, then I'm here to tell you, you're wrong. You're wrong, because it's the opposite. We're people, and we have problems. We're not perfect, and that's okay. So we need to stop the ignorance, stop the intolerance, stop the stigma, and stop the silence. We need to take away the taboos. Take a look at the truth and start talking. Because the only way we're going to beat a problem that people are battling alone is by standing strong together. By standing strong together. And I believe that we can. I believe that we can. Thank you guys so much. This is a dream come true. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's take a further look at depression. Depression includes 5 or more of these symptoms for at least 2 weeks daily that have impacted your functioning. A depressed mood during most of the day, sad, empty, or hopeless, feeling tired or having a lack of energy, feeling of worthlessness or guilt, having difficulty focusing, remembering details and making decisions, sleeping too much or not at all, having almost no interest or pleasure in many activities, thinking often about death or suicide, not just the fear of death, feeling restless or slowed down, and significant weight loss or gain. If you have 5 or more of these symptoms for at least 2 weeks every day, you may have depression. Don't keep it to yourself. Go talk to someone. Depression is so common it impacts more than 20 million people in the United States alone. 1 out of every 10 adolescents aged 16 to 17 had a major depressive episode just in this past year. Self-harm. Self-harm occurs when a person harms their own body on purpose. Most people think about self-harm as cutting, such as using a razor blade, knife, or other sharp object to cut the skin. However, self-harm has other ways it manifests. It could be punching self or things like a wall, burning self with cigarettes, matches, or candles, pulling out hair, poking objects into the skin, or purposely breaking bones or bruising self. Self-harm impacts 1 out of every 100 people. A person who self-harms usually doesn't mean to kill themselves or hurt themselves, but they're at a higher risk of attempting suicide if they don't get help. Many people self-harm because they say it gives them actually a sense of relief, as if they hurt themselves physically, maybe they won't feel as much of that mental, emotional pain. Some teens say that then when they hurt themselves, they're trying to stop feeling lonely, angry, or hopeless. Suicide is when a person intends to take their own life and they die because of those actions. A suicide attempt is when someone tried to end their life but did not die. Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death for teens, next to unintentional injury, like car accidents, homicides, and then those suicides. These are very important warning signs of suicide. Do not ignore these warning signs and get help immediately if any of these warning signs are present. Talking about being a burden to others, wanting to die or kill oneself, feelings of hopelessness or having no reason to live, great guilt and shame, and feeling trapped or in unbearable pain, looking for a way to kill oneself, increasing the use of alcohol or drugs, acting anxious or agitated, behaving recklessly, sleeping too much or too little, withdrawing or feeling isolated, showing rage or talking about seeking revenge, displaying extreme mood swings, and giving away possessions. If someone is telling you that they're going to kill themselves, or you notice any of the warning signs that we just talked about, do not leave that person alone. Don't promise anyone that you will keep their suicidal thoughts a secret. Make sure to tell an adult that you feel comfortable with, or call 911. There's also a toll-free national suicide prevention hotline or a crisis text line available 24 hours a day. All calls are confidential and it's available to everyone, every age. People, even strangers, have saved others' lives by being vigilant. We'll talk about other resources very soon in the next few slides. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health concerns, but not in an immediate danger, encourage that person to get support and reach out to a trusted adult as soon as possible. It's recommended that anyone struggling with their mental health visit a pediatrician or doctor. That pediatrician or doctor then may refer them to a psychiatrist, therapist, or psychologist who will be able to diagnose and begin a treatment plan, either through talk therapy or medication or a combination of both. Talking about your mental health. If you decide to open up and talk about your mental health, then you no longer have to worry about keeping it a secret. You can be more open in your day-to-day life. Those you share with may express support, appreciate your honesty. They may even share similar stories, confirming that you're not alone in your feelings or experiences. And you may be able to help someone else in need. Your story can help diminish the negative stereotypes and shame associated with depression and related illnesses. Talking about your mental health will help you get on the road to recovery and wellness. Here are some very important resources for teens. The mental health hotlines available, besides the ones that we talked about earlier, include 988. Everyone knows the number 911. Now, everyone should also remember the number 988. 988 is a 3-digit dialing code, connects callers in crisis to trained counselors that will listen, understand how their problems are affecting them, provide the support, and connect them to resources if necessary. 988. Next is CARES and SAS 800 number, where you can go to this number with any crisis. Mental health, physical health, any domestic disturbances, any crisis that you have, you can call this number and they will help provide you with services for both youth and adults. Crisis text line. Text home to 741741. That is a volunteer crisis counselor. Free 24/7 support at your fingertips, and you don't have to talk to anyone out loud. You can just text and type. Take a look at our work sites. Thank you for listening and watching this presentation today. Teen mental and emotional health is a very large piece of health and safety. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.